This video will go over how to properly streak out and report results from a biplate. Upon completion of this video, current and future MLS students will have acquired proficiency in proper plate streaking technique for a biplate setup. Upon completion of this video, current and future MLS students will be able to accurately read and report results from a biplate. Things that you'll need to get started are an SBA plate, 2 organisms of your choice, an incinerator, and a metal loop.
The first step you're going to, if you have an SBA or a plate that's not a biplate already, you're going to draw a line across the center to make it, to divide it in half. Then the next thing you're going to do is label. These I'm going to do E. coli and E. facilis. You also want to make sure you have the date and your initials. And I like to turn it around so it's facing that same direction, but you can do it whichever direction you'd like. Next, I'm going to streak the plate. I like to start with 1 organism, and then I turn my plate to where it's easy. This is just how I prefer it, but you can do it how you like. I'm going to incinerate my loop. Now, when you go to do this streak, I like to make a triangle. And so while this is cooling, I'll show you on the back of the plate. I make a little triangle, an equilateral triangle on the corner for your first quadrant. But I start on the left-hand side. So I'm gonna grab my isolated colony. And now I make sure to follow where the line is at, because you can see it through the plate. And I follow that line across, and then I go up in a triangle shape. And I just spread the colony evenly in that triangle. And then I'm going to incinerate the loop again. The next thing we're going to do is the second quadrant of our total of 3. So I make sure my plate's straight, and I always make sure I put my finger on the back of it so I'm recognizing this is the side I'm streaking, especially when you have 2 organisms started. But I like to do them one at a time just to make sure. Now this streak, you're going to start in the first quadrant and then streak really close up to the very brim and kind of curve it with the brim. So we're going to make sure we get those 2 to 3 streaks inside the brim, and then I very carefully streak up the side. And that will allow for that streaking to be just tight against that side. And then I don't incinerate again. Unless you want a really tight isolation, I will incinerate. It just kind of depends on my organism. Because I have E. coli, it will spread quite a bit, and so I always incinerate after the second quadrant, just like I would on a quad plate. For this last one, which is our third quadrant, I'm going to fill in the gap but not cross the line. That's the key, is not crossing this line. So I'm going to streak those 2 to 3 times into that and then nicely make a little, almost like a tornado type shape.
This is our biplate 24 hours later. You can see that we had good growth on both sides. An important thing to note is that we had good isolation on this side of the line, but not so much on this side. Like Lisa talked about, some organisms are more likely to grow and spread more than others, and that's why on a biplate it's important to incinerate between the second and third quadrants, not just the first 2. When reporting out on a biplate, you can have no growth, 1+, 2+, or 3+, but you will not have 4+ because we only have 3 quadrants. On this plate, you can see that they are both 3+.